What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the In-situ Health and Fitness Podcast. This is part 2 of my interview with Jessica. So make sure you go back and check out part 1 because this episode will make a lot more sense. As you can tell from part 1, I absolutely love having Jessica on the show, and she has agreed to come back on for the second one. So if you are listening to this and there's any topics or things that Jessica brought up that we could go deeper into, please let me know. And next time Jess is on, I'll bring up those questions or we can dive into those topics a little bit deeper. And again, make sure you head over to Jessica's Instagram and share the love. You'll find her Instagram handle in the show notes. And that'll do from me. Please enjoy this episode.
Eat right and you exercise, you should be fine. So I was like, okay, I'll take that back to my coach, see what she says. And she was like, yep, okay, good to know. We'll just keep doing what we're doing and see how you go. And thankfully, things still, tracked along. Not as quickly as I would have liked, but also didn't go backwards.
Wow.
Jump. Went on a bit of a tangent there.
No. So it's just jumping right back. It's funny when you were saying the things that you did to get yourself back on track are exactly what Mac and I talk about on the podcast. Like adding in whole foods, not necessarily changing a diet, just adding in whole foods and then chasing strength goals, which is exactly what you did.
And it can be so simple.
Yeah, literally just chase some strength goals, add some whole foods in, and you'll be surprised how much that can actually change your life and how you feel and look.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you sort of send PBs and stuff like that, because when I talk to most bodybuilders, strength isn't really a thing. Like hitting PBs, they don't care. It's just about getting the reps in, volume, all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
Was that part of your prep? Was that part of your program, or is that just something you like to do?
No, so it wasn't part of my program. During my prep, my lifts definitely decreased significantly. It was really all about just getting those reps in, getting that volume in. But when I'm not in a prep, I just enjoy chasing a PB. It helps me to feel accomplished, and I just like to feel strong. That's my main thing, is I just love being able to move some heavy ass weight. It makes me feel accomplished, and I'll still stick to my my program that my coach has given me, but maybe once I've done my sets and reps, I'll throw in a couple of 1 rep maxes here and there, just to kind of keep challenging myself and seeing that progress also.
I think people underestimate how being strong can improve your mental health, because when you can lift up your own washer or dryer and move yourself, it is very empowering, whether you're a guy, girl, whatever you identify as. Being strong and physically strong can make you mentally strong as well.
Absolutely. And that's so empowering.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So you talk about prep. For those that don't know what prep is, prepping for a show, what's the definition of prepping, or the process, I guess?
So a competition prep, generally for most people, it'll last around 20 weeks. Also depends on what your body composition is like as well. So some people might do 16 weeks, some people might do 12 weeks. Some people with quite a lean body composition might even only do 8 weeks. But generally you're looking at 20 weeks where you will be in a calorie deficit. So your calories will usually start around maintenance, and then every couple of weeks you'll drop down maybe 200 calories and just keep dropping every couple of weeks. Your training program will also do about the same thing. So a lot of people start with a lot of volume. There'll be a lot of reps, a lot of sets. But then as you get closer to the competition, it depends on your coach as well, but you'll probably see that your program will shrink as well, because you'll generally start increasing your cardio. So your weight training will actually reduce quite a bit, because your cardio is going to be what's going to burn that last bit of fat to get ready for the show. But during that time, you'll generally want to engage with a competition prep coach. So they will look after your nutrition. They will give you a training program. They will give you weekly check-ins, and generally weekly phone calls as well, to make sure that you're on track and you can talk about anything you might be struggling with, like cravings perhaps. And you'll also want to be talking about your outfit designs and things like that, ready for the competition. But yeah, you're looking at quite a significant depletion during your prep. So a lot of women, they'll probably sit around 2,000 calories to start, and then can end up around, I would say, no lower than 1,000 calories, but some women will end up down to 1,200 to 1,100 calories by the time their competition rolls around, which is quite low. A lot of people do lose their menstrual cycles coming into a competition, just because the body is so depleted, and also depending on your body fat percentage as well. Not everybody will lose their menstrual cycle. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's definitely something that can result from the strenuous activity, the drastic depletion in calories, the low body fat percentage, and just by that point your body's essentially running on fumes. So it's like shuts everything down, so that way
Yeah,
prep isn't exactly a healthy thing.
yeah, I was going to say,
It can be. A lot of people are still quite conscious of their health while they're in a prep. But I remember while I was in mine, I was talking to a friend about it, and she was like, "Oh, you can't tell me this is healthy." And I was like, there was no point I ever said that this was healthy. Like the first, I'd say the first 3/4 of it was quite healthy. Even though there was a calorie deficit, we were still, there was a lot of like whole foods, a lot of color in my diet. Vitamins and water consumption were way up, and I was looking good, I was feeling good, I was energized. But then towards, I'd say, the last 4 weeks, I'd say 6 to 4 weeks, that's when I really started to feel it, and became unhealthy because the calories dropped so low. I was doing 20,000 steps a day, which is a lot, on top of an hour of cardio every day, which would be like an hour on the stairs or an hour on a bike, plus an hour of weight training as well. It was a lot. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind too, is that
it's almost like you're training towards just being depleted.
oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's where we all end up. I mean, we want to be depleted so that our muscles show and our veins show and all of that. That's the whole point of it. But yeah, it's not sustainable, and I think that's something that's really important for people to remember, because while it's good to have a physique like that, it's not something that you can maintain year round.
No, and I think that's a big misconception for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So I had this thought last night. We were out to dinner with friends, and this guy walks in. He was good looking, had a lot of muscle, looked good in his shirt, fitted well, all that sort of stuff. And then I sort of look over, I'm like, oh, like I don't look like that. I train all the time. Should my training be better? Am I eating the right food? Should I start taking some peptides or testosterone? Like, what am I doing? I should be looking like that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like for me, I don't need to look better than anybody else. It doesn't affect my job. It doesn't affect anything. But it still affects me. And it has, like, I could, like 6 months' time, I could be bigger than that guy and walk up to him and to be like, well, who the hell are you? Like, I don't care who you are. And it doesn't, and it literally doesn't matter. But it does sort of matter for you. Like prepping, going through all that. How do you deal with that? Like that's,
yeah, I mean, so there is a lot of body dysmorphia that happens when you're in a competition prep. And I think majority of people who compete you speak to, they'll probably have experienced body dysmorphia at some point during their prep. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard because, I mean, more or less your biggest competition is yourself, but realistically you are competing against other people, and it's like you see them and you're like, oh shit, I don't look like that. Like, you know, how am I ever gonna, match up to that or, surpass that?
Mm.
But I guess you just have to remember that everybody's on their own journey. Everybody has had a different starting point. Everybody has different diets. Everybody has different training programs. Everybody has different, hormonal things going on inside of their bodies. People are on different medications. There are so many variables that you need to remember. And while, you can look at someone and think, wow, that's impressive, you don't necessarily know what's going on in the background of all of that. They might be depleted as hell. They might be exhausted. They might be craving junk food out the wazoo, and, driving themselves mad to stay, looking a certain way. And while, looking good definitely can result in feeling good, sometimes it's not. I mean, a lot of times it's great for your mental health, but sometimes there are moments when it's perhaps not so great because it is taxing. When you are training so hard, when you're dieting so heavily, it gets exhausting. And I think that exhaustion can really just drain you. I think physically and mentally as well. So yeah, for things like that, I think you just need to look at the bigger picture and be like, you know what? I don't know where they started from. They might have been, a Olympic level athlete majority of their lives. Who knows? They might be on certain medications that can help them lose weight. I mean, lately you see a lot of things about Ozempic, which is like it's a diabetes drug, but a lot of people have caught on that it can help you lose weight. So you don't know if someone's maybe taking like that, something like that, or performance enhancers, steroids, testosterone, and peptides, like you mentioned before. You don't know what their diet's like. They might be eating like a bird and next to nothing. They might be eating nuts and meat, very little veg or something, and you just don't know what's going on behind someone else's physique. All you can do is control what you do for you, and where you realistically want to be. Because while it's all well and good to say, wow, I want to look like that, that's not always for everybody. Like, yeah, it's admirable and it's something to look up to, but it's not necessarily something that you need to achieve. And while it might be nice to look like that, it's like, okay, well, I can be my own version of that type of thing. Because even if you do get shredded, lose body fat, gain muscle, whatever it may be, you're not necessarily going to look like that person. Your physiology is completely different as well. The way that your body holds your weight, the way that your body builds muscle. Some people can be very dominant in their shoulders. Some people can be very dominant in their legs. And for a lot of people, no matter how hard you try, some are just gifted in certain areas than others. But I mean, for me at the moment, I think a lot of people compliment me on my shoulders. And it's like, okay, but I might never have legs like that because my body just like the way that my body stores body fat is just my legs are always going to be fattier than the rest of my body, even at a low body fat percentage. Like my legs are always going to be thicker than somebody else. But then that other person might be like, oh, I wish I had shoulders like that. And it's like, you can't really pick and choose. You can do your best, but yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said. Just taking a zoom out and looking at the bigger picture is what you need to do because, we all want to look certain ways, but how reality as well, genetics is plays a big part of it.
Yep.
So is that something you talk about with your coach going through the prep phase?
Yeah, it definitely is. So it can also help in choosing what division you're going to enter as well for the competition. So someone like me who tends to have a thicker lower body, there are divisions that cater to that. So in the last, I'd say maybe 5 years it's really come into the bodybuilding scene more is the wellness division, where it's very similar to bikini. The girls are very lean, but their lower body is thicker in the glutes and in the quads and hamstrings. So that's something that I discuss with my coach, because it's like, okay, while I might want to enter bikini, my body probably just isn't built for bikini. It's probably built more for wellness. So that's something to look at as well, is just what are your strengths and how can you use them to your gain. And so that's something that we're going to look at next year when I compete next, is I'm going to enter probably both bikini and wellness, just to see how I place, and whether I get any feedback from the judges as well to which one, because it's a bit borderline at the moment, because I still have quite a bit of body fat to lose. So we're not too sure how my legs are going to look once that's all gone, and whether or not we are going to retain as much muscle mass once I am more depleted, and all of that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to talk about with your coach, because then they can also, tailor your program to build up areas that you want to gain in, and also help you just kind of like recomposition your body. So say you've got big legs and you want to shrink them as much as you can. That's something that you can talk to your coach about. They can pull, maybe you've got 3 leg days in your program. Maybe they can dial that back down to 2 or even 1. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can kind of restructure your nutrition and your training to help aid in those areas that you want to change the most, I guess.
So how did you come across your coach, and what goes into picking a good coach? And sorry, what's the difference between a coach and a PT? You actually put a post up on Instagram about that.
Yes.
And it's a lot of people don't really know the difference, or haven't even thought about the difference. So what's a PT to you, and what's a coach to you?
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something that I had a few people ask me about when I was in my prep, because they asked me how much I pay my coach. And when I told them, they were like, are you insane? Like, that is nuts. So like, I pay my coach $90 a week, which sounds like a lot to
that's nothing.
Average person. Yeah. But the way that I found a lot of people think of it is that a coach is a personal trainer. So a personal trainer, you might pay, $50 a session once a week or once a fortnight or something like that. But a personal trainer is essentially going to look after your training program only. Or maybe if they've got some nutrition qualifications, they can help you out there. But a coach is a more, I would say, holistic, person. They will look after your training program. They will actually give you a diet plan, not just nutrition guidance, but an actual plan as well. They can definitely give you nutrition guidance as well, because some people like to practice what's called flexible dieting, where you have set macronutrients, so carbs, protein, and fat, and a set amount of calories, and then you can basically eat whatever you want as long as it fits within that structure. So a coach can also give you advice on that. A coach will do weekly check-ins where you do your measurements. They'll ask you how you're feeling, what your mood's like, what your sleep's like, how many steps you've done. Might even ask about your resting heart rate. They'll also guide you with regard to what you will be wearing on the day of your competition. So they'll help you pick out your bikini, or for men, your trunks, your shoes. WBFF is very glamorous in the way that they run their shows. So there are evening gowns involved and evening wear for the men. So your coach can help you with that. They'll also help you with your posing as well for when you do step up on stage at the competition. So they'll be able to help you figure out ways to best present yourself so that way you flatter your physique as much as possible on stage. And they will also, adjust your diet frequently, adjust your training program frequently, and they'll just provide you with as much support as possible. They'll do weekly phone calls, sometimes have pretty much 24/7 support through WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, where you can get in touch with them. And so there's a lot more that goes into coaching, I feel, than just personal training. So your personal trainers generally work at a gym, diet, training program, and that's it. Whereas coaches will look after everything. They'll probably also give you protocols for your vitamins, water intake, and things like that as well, because they do want to make sure that your health is also looked after as much as possible through the journey. So you'll generally want to make sure that coaches that you look at do have qualifications for everything. So you want them to have qualifications in, fitness, personal training, that kind of thing, but also nutrition, sometimes women's health, and some might even have qualifications in sports rehab, in physiotherapy and things like that, to make sure that they're supporting their clients as best as possible without jeopardizing their health, because that is so important, and it's so easy to kind of mess someone up if you don't do things right. And the way that I found my coach was actually through social media. I followed her for a long time, not even looking for a coach at that point. She was just someone that I looked up to. And there were a few that I had been following that I was like, oh, okay, like I can see that they're offering coaching programs. And so I had a look at each person that I was perhaps interested in. I went to their websites and I had a look at their testimonials and also the results that their clients have had. I had a look at their qualifications, and also just like the content that they would share on their social media, and like the knowledge that they would share on there. So one thing that really struck a chord with me when I picked my coach was she was posting a lot about female reproductive health and how you can best utilize your training during your menstrual cycle. And I was like, okay, she seems to know her shit. So I had a bit more of a look and I was like, yeah, okay, I think I'm going to go with her, because she's had so many transformations. She's got so many pro athletes under her belt. She has so many qualifications. I think she's got like 7 different qualifications in nutrition, and training, female reproductive health, and a few other things. And I was just like, okay, let's give her a go and see where we land. I mean, you can, and I think something to remember as well, if you engage with a coach and you end up not liking the way that things are, you can always change to someone else. You don't have to stick with them if you're not happy with the results that you're getting or how they function as a coach. So
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Was it just one and done for you?
Yes. So I have been very lucky with her. She definitely knows her stuff. She is very supportive. She is also very impressive herself in the way that she does her own training, her own nutrition. She's a mum of 2. She's currently expecting her 3rd baby as well. And so she only had a bub. I think he only just turned 1 not too long ago. And I think it was barely, or might have been under 6 months after having that baby, she jumped on the world stage and competed over in the US. And
do you want to just drop who it is?
So her name is Alicia Kyrgios now. So she just got married, but a lot of people know her as Alicia Gowans. So that's Gowans. She is a 3-time world fitness champion in the WBFF, and just an amazing woman.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you're describing a coach, you're literally just describing a coach for any other sport, whether it is tennis, golf, name your sport. It's literally the same as what a coach would be doing, but just for bodybuilding.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how different was this prep compared to last time? As in, a lot of times when you do something the second time, it's a lot easier. You're not as scared. I feel like you know what's coming. Did you feel more confident going into the second competition? Or has it felt like starting over again?
Oh, in some ways I felt more confident, but in other ways I didn't. I felt more confident because I kind of knew what to expect in what would be required of me during a prep in terms of calorie deficit, in terms of energy output, and being very structured with my day, how I sleep, how I ate, all of that. But it definitely felt like starting again because I started at 90 kilos. So I was back near my heaviest weight again. And so for that was very daunting and very scary. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it in time for the competition date. And I had my heart set on this competition date. I was like, I don't want to budge from it. Like, so it was, yeah, it was kind of stressful in that regard and daunting, but I definitely had a better idea of what to expect because I've already somewhat done it before. This one was very different too, in that the way that posing is done for the WBFF isn't exactly your conventional bodybuilding posing. So the WBFF, they're the World Beauty, Fitness and Fashion Federation. So it's very fashion forward. And in that regard, they want you to look more like a model when you're on stage than a bodybuilder. I mean, obviously the physique of a bodybuilder, but they want you to move like a model and like engage with the crowd, like a crowd, as if you're modeling. So that was something very different for me because I never felt like I was glamorous or someone who had that confidence to perform like that. And so that was a big learning curve. And I was very, very grateful to have found I actually engaged a separate posing coach to my actual coach just to kind of really refine things. So I was very grateful to find her, and it's been very interesting to see how my confidence has changed, even just from something as simple as my posing, helping to kind of bring out that energy within myself. So that was both scary because I had no idea what the hell I was doing when I started, but it was also very empowering once I did start to get the hang of it.
So what would you go back and tell yourself, like before this comp or even the comp before, not necessarily yourself, but maybe somebody that is thinking about doing a comp that's sort of working out, sort of in the back of the head? Any advice, thoughts going up to it, or even if they should go into a comp?
So one really important one that I would mention now, just having spoken about posing, is get yourself a posing coach. It's going to help so much. So what I did in my first competition was just, I completely winged it pretty much. I had one session with a girl that had competed once before who kind of walked me through some posing, and that was it. I had not practiced any posing. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I had this 1 hour session where we just did a quick run over of like the walk that we do on the stage and a couple of poses, but it was not at all refined. It was a mess. I look back on photos of it now and I'm just like, I really wish I'd taken more time to focus on my posing, because that will really, really help your chances of placing, because judges also look at your stage presence as well, not just your physique. So that's something to really.
Can somebody just go and get a posing coach, even if like just, can I just go and do it?
I mean, yeah, if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to be going into a competition. If it's something that you want to learn, then by all means you can get a posing coach. A lot of them can do just like one-off sessions, like once every couple of months, if it's something that you just have an interest in learning. For me, this last competition that I did, when I started, I think it was for the good first 3 or 4 months, I did one session every fortnight. And then closer to the competition, it ended up being one session every week. And then the week of, I had, I think it was three sessions in that last week to just really get things ready. But yeah, so that would be the first one, is definitely take the time to learn your posing, have someone to guide you. And also having a reason why you're doing it, and that reason being for you and not for anyone else, because that can be detrimental, and it's also just probably not the healthiest way to approach a competition prep. You want to be doing it for you. Like I said, back in 2020, when I was in this relationship, I was doing it for someone else. It fell apart, and it just wasn't for the right reason. I wasn't committed to it for the right reason. But this time around, I feel like I nailed it as best I could, because I was doing it entirely for me. And when I came out of it, I definitely feel better than I probably would have if I was doing it for someone else, because I'm not seeking external gratification. And I think that's something that's really important, is you need to find that within yourself first and foremost, because I mean, yeah, other people will support you and everything, but at the end of the day, other people don't care how you really look. It's all down to how you feel in the end. And so, yeah, having a reason why you're doing it that is true to you is really, really important. And also making sure that you've also got a healthy relationship with, I'd say, food and your mental health before you start one as well. Because if you're someone who has come from perhaps an eating disorder like anorexia or bulimia, or even if you're someone who just gets stuck in a cycle of binge and restrict, for example, you don't want to go into a competition prep like that, because it can really exacerbate those disorders. And that is not something that you then want to then kind of play into after a competition is over, because then that can, I mean, a lot of people you see after a bodybuilding competition, they'll go out and they'll have, a big burger and chips and shakes and desserts. And, they might even go on depending on their relationship with food, I should say, they can go on a binge for weeks. But you'll find that the people who do have a good relationship with food, they'll go and do that for, maybe the night after the competition, maybe the day after, or on that weekend. But then once that weekend is over, they're straight back into their diet or their reverse diet that their coach has given them. So I think that's something that's really important, because you can definitely blow out after a competition, gain a ton of weight, or you can also find yourself in a cycle where you might be binging and then restricting, and then restricting isn't healthy, because that sets up a really bad mindset in terms of your relationship with your body as well. And also just, I mean, it's not good to be, binging one day and then eating absolutely nothing for the next day to 2 days to try and get your weight back down. That's just not how it should be. You should be able to have flexibility with your food without like driving yourself mad, being like, oh, I regret that, or just like beating yourself up when there is no need to. You're creating stress where there does not need to be stress.
Yeah. How that I love everything you just said. So how did you be aware of that? Because a lot of people will just get caught in that cycle of binge and restrict, like you said. And I'll ask you, like, what's your bigger picture? Because as you said, taking a look at the bigger picture is a good way not to get caught up in those cycles. What other people look like? Am I as strong, or am I as good looking? If you can zoom out and look at your bigger picture, it gives you those little things don't matter as much, so you can just move on. So what is your bigger picture?
I would say for me, I'm more focused now on after a competition. Yes, it's okay. Go and reward yourself with something yummy, by all means. But then, like, I did that after my show, and I was like, okay, cool, I've had that. But now I'm like, okay, how do I feel after that? And I don't just mean mentally, but I'm like, okay, my stomach hasn't really agreed with that. I have a bit of heartburn. I have some cramping. I may be a bit constipated. I maybe have some acid reflux, or I just feel really fatigued and run down and just gluggy the next day. I'm like, okay, I don't like that feeling. And it's like, it's all well and good to, satisfy that craving every now and again. And you can do that in a controlled way where you might have a dinner and a dessert and that's it. And then you get back on your diet, get back to what you would normally be doing on your program, or just, not eating like an asshole. And I think that's probably a really good way to look at it, is to evaluate how you feel after you eat these things, and not necessarily in a mental way, like, oh, I regret eating that. Oh, that's going to make me gain weight. Oh, that's junk food. That's not going to be good for me. But evaluate how you feel. I mean, physically, that one's I think a really helpful tool to not fall into that binging. But then also after if you do find yourself falling into a binge where maybe you've had a night where you sit there and you eat a whole packet of Tim Tams, a whole block of chocolate, a whole packet of chips, and you just go all out, just once that's done and dusted, be like, okay, I did that and that satisfied my craving, but do I like how it made me feel? No, not really. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
No, I completely agree. And it's
Sorry.
like that do or die. Like, you don't have that do or die.
Yeah.
It's like, I've done that. I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Move
But
on.
also just be like, you know what? I've worked hard for months and months and months and months. This one night is not going to undo months. Like that, in comparison to months of work, is like, okay, might put on maybe 2 kilos of temporary weight, which is, mostly water weight and inflammation. But that's going to go away. So don't beat yourself up over it. Don't restrict over it. Just go back to doing what you would normally do and just be like, okay, that is what it is. Don't make a habit of it, but it's fine. It's not going to undo all of my hard work. Yes, it will if I continue going and binging night after night, or, just letting go of what you have worked so hard towards in terms of your diet. And just be like, you know what? That's a write-off. It's fine. I mean, it's not necessarily fine, but it's okay in that, isolated incident. Just don't make a habit of it. Because, you can only keep it up for so long before it does start to, make you gain actual weight. But just be like, you know what? It's okay. I've done that. Move on. And just carry on as normal, and things will go back to the way they were. Like, you don't need to get so in your head about it, because it's only natural for people to slip up every once in a while, especially if they've been in a really restrictive diet for a prolonged period. It's bound to happen at some point. I mean, some people, I call them superhuman or something. Some people are really like on point with it all, but if you're not, it's totally okay. You're not going to undo months and months of progress in one night or one weekend. Just don't make a habit of it, because once you do make a habit of it, those habits then snowball and perhaps turn into something that you don't want them to. And I guess that goes the same for healthy habits too. So if you're eating healthier foods, if you make a habit of it, that snowballs into healthier things. So just pick your habits and pick which direction you want it to snowball in, really.
100%. All right. To wrap up the bodybuilding side of things, any last thoughts on bodybuilding? Tips, tricks, ideas?
Good question. I would say definitely do your research when it comes to a coach. Make sure that they're qualified. And always remember that you can change coaches if you're not happy. And also just reiterating to remember your why, because your why is what is going to keep you accountable. It's what's going to keep you, I wouldn't say motivated, but I would say perhaps consistent or dedicated to what you're working towards, because we're not always going to be motivated. That will peak and trough all the time. But if you have something that's going to keep you accountable and something that's going to keep you working towards your goal, then you're more likely to achieve it. But also just make sure that you have healthy habits before getting into a bodybuilding competition, because, you know, bodybuilding competition is only temporary, but it can have a lasting impact on your life outside of that, in terms of your relationship with food, your relationship with your body. So just really make sure that you are conscious of, I guess, everything that's going on during a bodybuilding prep, and making sure that you take the time to reflect on how you're feeling, and perhaps if you're noticing any negative thoughts or negative habits crop up, that you try and nip them in the bud as soon as possible, and just always be thinking about the bigger picture as well.
Nice. All right. Let's wrap this up. I just looked at the time and I've realized I've taken a lot of your time up. So
Oh, that's fine.
last one, doesn't have to be health and fitness. Bodybuilding doesn't have to be related to anything, but what are you excited about at the moment?
I am excited about definitely medal presenting in November. That's going to be something that I'm really looking forward to, because I'll get to meet a lot of the women that I look up to. I'll get to see them compete, which will get me even more motivated for my next show in April. But also just life, I guess, and I'm finding more and more of myself throughout this journey, even outside of prep. Now that the prep's over, I'm excited to get to know myself more as just me, and not having the prep as my identity. Because I feel like a lot of people who do go into a bodybuilding prep, that kind of becomes their identity for that period. So yeah, just finding myself outside of that. And I mean, my job is something that I really enjoy, and I'm focusing on career progression at the moment. So I'm excited for that. And just really implementing healthy, lasting habits in my life outside of prep that I could also carry into prep. I mean, something that for me fell off I wouldn't say while I was in prep, but after my prep, was my sleep-wake cycle. Like, I found myself sleeping in a lot, and I guess that probably comes with fatigue, and that kind of set me on a path of like waking up pretty late in the day on weekends and not feeling very productive. And so now that is a really big focus for me. And also, just even though I'm not in a prep anymore, keeping up with my vitamin protocols and my water intake, and just really focusing on holistic health more than anything, I would say.
Love it. Well, thanks for coming on. I feel like we could just do a whole episode on just 10 different topics that we talked about.
Yeah.
So I think next time, if you'll come back on, we'll just choose one topic and dive into one topic for an hour and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many things. Oh, I could talk for ages.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back and revisit like a lot, but I'm like, well, we're already going for half an hour, so we'll do round 2 for sure.
Of course. Yeah, sounds good. I'd love to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Last thing, is your dad still smashing it in the gym?
No, he's not anymore. He's more into downhill mountain biking these days. So I think it was about 3 years ago now, he kind of put the weights away and changed over to mountain bike riding, which it's fine. He's getting a bit older now, so
that's not a bad thing. That's still an awesome thing to be doing.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Jessica.
No problem. Thank you, Jack.
Hey guys, this is Mac again. Just one more thing before you leave, and that is 2-Minute Tuesdays. Would you enjoy getting a short email from me every Tuesday that provides a little chicken nugget of information that I found useful and interesting, and that I think might also help you? It is about half a page long, intended to be a 2-minute read, kind of like a virtual record of my personal diet, exercise, productivity, and life epiphanies that I think would be useful to others, and especially to you guys listening. So if that sounds like fun, again, very short, a tiny little insight to keep you motivated for the week and give you something to think about. And if you would like to try it out, just go to insitucollective.com/newsletter, drop in your email, and you will get the very next one. Again, that is in-situ collective.com/newsletter. It is completely free, and of course you can unsubscribe at any time. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.